Hello friends, it's Nancy from Astrology and Angel Mediums today with another deck review. And today I will be talking about The Influence of the Angels Tarot by Jody Boginski Barbasi. And this is actually published from US Games. I think it was published quite a few years ago. It's a 78 card deck, traditional kind of box. I have been using it for some time now, and it is one of the decks that I really do enjoy using for clients. So for client readings, like pick a piles, things like that. So if you've watched any of my videos with that, you've probably seen this deck. Now, while it is not the most inclusive deck, I do think that the art is beautiful. I do love like that kind of Renaissance time period art. I think it's really beautiful. There's something that's just, I don't know, very evocative about that art. And so I do think that it's, a really nice interpretation of a tarot deck. So if you're someone that maybe works with angels or thinks that the imagery is really nice to have, if that is, again, something that you enjoy. So it does have a nice little chunky guidebook instead of just like a traditional little, like, little white book, like I've seen with a lot of US Games decks. So it does really talk about what angels are. And for the most part, it can be used as a traditional tarot deck. It doesn't need to be so focused on like what angels are used and things like that. But there is kind of that information. If that is something that you like to kind of utilize, it's really nice to have that energy to kind of tune into and kind of add that other layer into your readings. So as we can see, each of the major cards has a guardian angel kind of associated with it, and it kind of gives you a little bit of information. So for the Emperor card, we have Metatron. We had Michael for the Magician. Here we have Hasmal, things like that. So if that is something that you're also studying or wanting to learn a little bit more of, this is great to kind of have a little bit more of this information and kind of what that would mean for the tarot interpretations that you may be using. So we have like Azrael is the angel assigned to death. So it's very much, is responsible for guiding the dead souls into heaven. So it makes sense that he would be associated with the death card. I think it's really nice that it has still a little bit of information on what the traditional card meanings are. So that is really nice, especially if you do a little bit better by having like some keywords and stuff like that and not being too distracted by lengthy tarot like guidebooks inside of like your tarot decks. So good stuff that we have here. I do like that there's, the information about like the symbolism used and things like that. Again, if you are into angel work and things like that, it's nice to have a tarot deck that would also reflect that. That maybe is a little bit different than the decks that are provided from Hay House that I think Radley Valentine has taken over the printing that During Virtue did at one point in time. So I'm just going to kind of show you guys the cards so you can kind of see the artwork and things like that. The deck is just traditional kind of cardstock, nothing too crazy, not too thin, but also not too thick. It's very shiny, glossy finish, as you can see, with a reversible back. For the cards, which is nice, especially if you are someone that reads reversed meanings. And then it has a little border on each of the cards, and then it has the actual identifying name of each of the cards. So if that's something that you tend to struggle with, I know sometimes with certain decks, when they've been mass produced, it's like they kind of remove some of the borders and things like that. So it's nice to have that. The deck is, kind of edged with like some gilding, like some gold. I just think it looks nice. It makes it look a little bit more complete. I've had this deck for a few years, so it is it is holding up. As much as I've used it, as much as it's not really cracking. There are some places where it has cracked, but it's not so bad to where it's flaked off completely. So again, I think the artwork is very nice, but it is, again, kind of a RWS or Rider-Waite-Smith clone. So if you are familiar with reading with a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, this would be nice transition for that, because the imagery is still very similar, but there are angels kind of included in the deck, which is, it is a angels tarot deck. So there is a little bit of that. But again, not the most inclusive artwork. So if that's what you're looking for, you're not going to find it in this angel deck at this point in time. I just think it's interesting. I think it's great for reading others. I don't even know how I came across this deck. I think this was a gift. I don't know if someone gifted it to me or sent it to me or something. I don't even know, but I've had it and I've used it, and it's been really great for, artwork, like based kind of like readings that I may want to do. So we have all of these things kind of showing up that, kind of show you, especially for the minor cards. I do really like that this isn't just like a pip deck where it's just like the symbol of whatever. It has like some imagery going with it to help you kind of connect a little bit more to the messages. And I think it's nice to kind of see a little bit of that traditionalism and some of this really beautiful art. And I don't even know if this is all like Renaissance, like paintings and stuff like that. It might be other artwork. I really never even looked into seeing where they got the artwork. But again, it's beautiful. It's not all super cohesive. So if that is something that maybe like you're wanting, it may be an issue. But I think that for me, I think it's a nice deck to utilize with clients. It has fun little things in there. And again, if you're someone that connects to the angels or the angel realm or wants to kind of connect a little bit more, but then also have a tarot deck that you feel kind of connected to, this would be a really good one to have in your collection. And these are not going to be in order because, again, this is an actively used deck in my collection. So I'm not going to be able to show you everything in order, but it is very beautiful the way that it's been laid out, the different imagery. Like, I just think this is a really beautiful moon card. King of Cups. I think this is a really cool looking tower card as well. And we have things like the Six of Wands. And then we have the World, which I think is a gorgeous world card as well. So some of the artwork is just really beautiful. I like there's like almost like a sepia tone, I feel like, to this deck, which I kind of like, where it's a little bit warmer. It's not so bright white with the artwork, which is nice. Our King of Swords, our Five of Pentacles, kind of showing you, again, you can kind of tune into the artwork, kind of understand what's going on and how to interpret the message, which I think is great, especially if you are someone who likes to do more intuitive readings and maybe doesn't always have everything super memorized or has kind of developed a system that works for you. I think the aces are super cute too. Well, to me, I think that this deck has been really lovely for me to use in my readings with others, especially in person, because the imagery is not super like dark. I have kind of noticed that people tend to gravitate to decks that maybe aren't super dark or whatever, super scary, because even like the Devil card or the Death card in this deck, they aren't super crazy. It's not anything that makes you feel like, oh my gosh. I had this one deck that was based off of like the art from Stephen Grimmell, who did the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark series. That was really popular in like the late 80s and early 90s. Shout out to my millennial brethren out there that grew up reading those books. And I loved the deck, but the artwork was really, really dark and just like really spooky. So like I remember trying to read with that deck for others, and I just feel like I'm just so distracted by the really scary images on your deck. So after that, I was kind of like, okay, maybe I need to focus on having decks that are a little bit more universal and not so spooky. Because again, I think that there's still a lot of like what's the word? Oh my God, it just left my brain. Like there's a lot of like misinformation and fear surrounding readings and things like that. And so some people can just really close themselves off, especially if the imagery is just really intense. So I have found that by using decks that maybe have more normal kind of artwork, not saying that this is normal, but a little bit more relatable artwork or softer artwork, it just seems to not be something that seems so scary or so uncomfortable for people, especially if they're not familiar with tarot decks or whatever. I think it can kind of help, with a reading, kind of getting it where it needs to go, I guess, and having them actually receive the message. So I think that this is a great deck, especially if you're someone that maybe is transitioning a little bit more, exploring other decks from like Rider-Waite-Smith clones, but then also do like to work with the angels. It's really nice to have a deck that you can kind of utilize in that way. It shuffles great. It's a traditional 78 card deck. Nothing too crazy. I think it's nice. Traditional kind of deck size. It's not massive, but it's also not tiny, because I have noticed from other US game decks, like I have the Doré, the Gustave Doré tarot, and then I also have the Halloween tarot deck. And these are also published from US games, but like this one is a much wider size. That is nice. I have the guidebook in here. I guess not. So it is, this card is slightly larger, right? It is a slightly bigger size, but then I also have this other one, which is also a lot smaller, I believe. If I just take one of these cards, this one's even smaller. So just because you're purchasing from the same publisher doesn't always mean that they're going to have cards in the same size. So maybe keep that in mind, especially if there's like a size that you really like. I really like this size, but a lot of my favorite decks are more like this size, or even a slightly larger card like this. So it is a little bit smaller than a traditional deck, or even like the Hay House tarot decks, which I can just bring out one of these cards, and that's not it. It's like the one card I picked. So like here I have this 9 of Cups. This is, I think, going to be very similar size to this Halloween tarot deck. Yes, it's a similar size to the Halloween tarot deck. So slightly smaller than the Influence of the Angels deck. So if that is something that you want to take into consideration, maybe kind of keep that in mind, because it is going to be slightly different size. As far as review, I have really enjoyed using this deck. I think it's fantastic for, again, client readings. I think it's nice. The imagery is very subtle. It's not anything too crazy. So I think it's nice to have something like that in your collection, if that is something that you are looking for, or maybe have been, wanting to utilize something that has a little bit more of like a welcoming kind of imagery to it, or whatever, or where the cards aren't super intense. But I've used this deck for years. I do think it's great. I hope you guys have enjoyed my review of this. Let me know what you guys think. Are there other decks that are out there that maybe you've seen in my collection that you would like me to review? Let me know. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining me. Please take care, stay safe, and as always, make good choices. Bye.